Once upon a time, in a small town nestled deep in the woods, there lived a young girl named Sarah. She was a curious and adventurous child, always eager to explore the mysterious forest that surrounded her home. One day, while out on a hike, Sarah stumbled upon an old, abandoned cabin deep in the heart of the woods. Intrigued, she ventured inside to investigate. As she explored the dark and musty interior, she noticed a strange feeling of unease creeping over her. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her and she was plunged into darkness. Panic set in as Sarah searched desperately for a way out. But the more she tried to escape, the more she felt as if something was watching her, following her every move. She could hear strange noises coming from the shadows, and a feeling of dread washed over her as she realized that she was not alone. Desperate and terrified, Sarah finally found a window and managed to break it open. She crawled out and fled back to her home, vowing never to return to the cabin again. But the horrors of that night were far from over. From that day on, Sarah began to experience strange occurrences in her home. Objects would move on their own, and she could hear whispering voices in the darkness. She became convinced that something from the cabin had followed her home and was now tormenting her. As the days passed, Sarah's fear and paranoia grew until she was a shell of her former self. Her family and friends tried to help her, but nothing could shake the feeling of dread that seemed to cling to her like a second skin. In the end, Sarah was consumed by the evil that had followed her home from that abandoned cabin in the woods. And to this day, it is said that her spirit still haunts the forest, forever trapped in a nightmare from which she can never escape. Sarah's family and friends were at a loss. They had never seen her so consumed by fear and paranoia before. They tried everything they could think of to help her, but nothing seemed to work. One night, Sarah's parents decided to take her back to the cabin in the woods, in an attempt to confront her fears head-on. They hoped that by returning to the source of her nightmares, they could put an end to them once and for all. As they approached the cabin, Sarah's fear was palpable. She begged her parents to turn back, but they insisted on going through with their plan. They pushed open the door and stepped inside, with Sarah reluctantly following behind. But as soon as they entered, they knew something was wrong. The cabin was different than they remembered it. The musty smell had been replaced by the stench of decay, and the darkness seemed to be alive with movement. Sarah's parents were horrified by what they saw. The furniture was overturned and the walls were covered in strange symbols and markings. And then they heard it, a low growling coming from the shadows. They tried to leave but found that the door was now blocked, and the windows were all boarded up. They were trapped. And that's when the creature revealed itself. It was a twisted, monstrous being, unlike anything they had ever seen before. It had come from the cabin and had been following Sarah ever since. The creature attacked them and they fought back, but they were no match for its strength and ferocity. In the end, they were overpowered, and the creature dragged Sarah back to the cabin, where it intended to keep her trapped forever. But Sarah was not ready to give up. She fought with all her might, and managed to overpower the creature, banishing it back to the depths of the woods. With the creature gone, Sarah's parents were able to escape the cabin, and they returned home, shaken but alive. Sarah had faced her fears and come out victorious, but the memory of that night would haunt her for the rest of her life. From then on, Sarah never ventured into the woods again, and the cabin was left to rot, a silent reminder of the horrors that lay hidden within. But some say that on certain nights, when the moon is full, you can still hear the screams of the creature, and the whispers of the spirits trapped in the cabin. And if you're brave enough to venture into the woods, you might just see Sarah's ghost, wandering aimlessly, still haunted by the memories of that fateful night. If you like this video, please give it a like and share. Subscribe the channel for more amazing stories.